Let's start with the first part on the distributed workforce by Glenn Felson. Glenn is the founder of PropTech and the future of real estate. He has held executive leadership roles for companies ranging from startups to Fortune 500. He's joining us today live directly from the New York City. Glenn, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really great. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to this group. It's a real honor. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much. I wanted to speak on a couple of topics today that are just really close to me and I'm really passionate about. The first one is about the safe return to the office. And as a PropTech community, I believe we have an obligation to the community to be able to ensure that people that want to return to the office safely are able to do that. And then the second part is really on the distributed workforce, what it is, how technology powers it, and what the future looks like, or at least what I believe the future looks like. Very quickly, just to give you an overview of myself. So I've been in real estate and prop tech for the past 20 years. I live in the New York City area in northern New Jersey. And I've held roles in a lot of different aspects of prop tech and real estate. So I was on the residential side at Realogy with franchising. I then joined a company called Castle Systems, where we sold visitor management, access control, CCTV solutions to Class A and B multi-tenant commercial buildings. And then I made a jump into the flexible workspace as the CSO of a large international flexible operator that had 500 offices throughout the US, the UK, and Canada. And just recently, I returned back to Castle Systems as the managing director, which we'll talk about as we go through. Quickly, I'm on the board of directors for a company called Urban Immersive. They have amazing technology, so if you have a chance, check them out. And what I'm most passionate about and what I really enjoy doing is blogging. So I started my blog back in January of this year called PropTech and the Future of Real Estate, where we write articles each week. If you want to check it out, it's just proptechfuture.com, and it'll bring you right to it. So I'll jump right into the presentation. And when you look at the current office environment, it has changed dramatically due to COVID. And this is a survey that was done by a company called Cohesion back in 2019. And what they did was they surveyed many employees at companies all throughout the world. And they asked them, what is the most important part of your office? What makes you most excited to come into the office? What are you looking for from a company? And if you look at the responses, the first one is more physical amenities on site. So gyms, bars, restaurants, the ability to be more productive with food ordering, aesthetically pleasing offices and lobbies. And you can see the list. And what I think comes at no surprise is that when the survey or a similar survey was conducted recently, the priorities that employees were looking for in their return to office were very, very different. The things that were most important, like amenities, on-site gyms, and restaurants, have moved from the top place down to the last place. So here's another survey that was done by a company called Tenant Base. And what they did was they asked the same questions, but they asked it after COVID became a reality. And if you look at what is most important right now from an employee standpoint, first is touchless everything. So touchless access control, touchless visitor management, bathroom water, soap dispensers, towels. So that is the number one thing that employees are looking for in a post-COVID world. Access to their seats on the outside. This one is one that I think is really interesting, which is first floor space. As everybody knows, top floor penthouses were a premium post-COVID. Nobody wanted to be on the first floor. Now, first floor and second floor are a premium. People don't want to get into the elevators with many people. And the second is that most buildings have restrictions on how many people can get into the elevator at one time. So if you have a penthouse suite or a high floor suite, you could be sitting in the lobby for 15, 20 minutes. Better understanding of what building janitorial entails. And what's funny about this is I had never heard this request one time before COVID started. And now it's a really important aspect of buildings, is to communicate between the building and the tenant and employees on things like how often the building is cleaned, how the air filters are being replaced, are the ducts being cleaned. People are looking for furniture that can be reconfigured. And amenities are still important, but now it comes down to walkable amenities. The ability to have things close by, but you see it from a priority standpoint, it's really slipped. And then the last one are windows that can be open to provide fresh air, which is something that we hear a lot about. So when you look at the technology that's needed for a safe return to the office, there's a couple of categories that I hear about often. They're represented right here. So the first one is touchless access. And we talked about this a little bit on the prior slide, but touchless access control, which means using your cell phone to be able to open up doors, to control elevators, to process visitors, is the single biggest request we're hearing about. At Castle Systems, we pioneered touchless access control about 5 years ago. But when we rolled it out, it was purely an amenity. It was purely a convenience. And now buildings are standardizing on this as really an important part of their decision making. Screening in and out. They want to know that companies and buildings are having employees fill out screening requests to show whether they are self-reporting, if they had a fever, if they had symptoms. They want to make sure that there's a log of that and people are self-reporting so that people aren't showing up to work sick. Contact tracing. They want to know that if somebody was sick in the office or in the building, that they can find out and be notified about it as quickly as possible so that they can quarantine. Capacity monitoring or occupancy. This is one that everybody's trying to tackle, and it's a really important one. If you're working from home and you want to come to the office a particular day, you want to know how many people are going to be in the office at that time. If you do want to use a fitness studio or an elevator, you want to know how many people are in that at that particular time. And then the last one is air quality. You want to have sensors that can determine the air quality and be able to alert you if there is an issue within the building or in the tenant suite. The reason why I picked these 5 is that all 5 of these are controlled by an access control system. Now, not all of them do this, but if you look to different components, you want to make sure that it all ties back to one singular platform, because the last thing your teams want to do is log into one app to be able to access the building, another app to determine what the air quality looks like, a third app to determine occupancy. So all of this can be powered off of one system or a combination of systems. And it's really important that when you're in the market and you're looking at different vendors, no matter who you speak to, that they have open APIs, that all of the systems can speak together. Because I can assure you that if you roll out 5 different platforms to your teams, the adoption rate is going to be low and the frustration level is going to be high. So it's really important that everything speaks together. Next, I want to talk about a distributed workforce. So a distributed workforce, which goes by different names, people call it hub and spoke, they call it a hybrid approach, but it refers to a real estate strategy where employees work in a network of small offices that are closer to their homes or their homes as well. It includes your home office, a traditional lease, a network of private flexible offices, co-working, and on-demand bookings as well. What I am hearing in the marketplace is that almost every company is looking to roll out a distributed workforce. COVID did not cause distributed workforces. They've been around for some time. It was about in 2010 that WeWork came on the scene, where we realized that 15-year leases, while they make sense in some cases, they don't make sense in a lot of cases. And if you think about it, it's very hard to plan what your company is going to look like for the next 12 months, or let alone the next 15 years. If you're a company that has 100 employees today, and you plan on doubling that in the next 3 years, and you were signing a 15-year lease, you could either sign a 15-year lease for 300 people and have a lot of extra space that you're paying for right now that you're growing into, or you can sign it a 15-year lease for your current size and outgrow it in a year or two and be stuck with a very long term on the remaining portion of your lease. You can sublet the space, but subletting comes with massive risks, because if you sublet your space to another tenant and they default on it, you're responsible for the remaining term of that lease. We also realized that some of the real estate decisions that we were making didn't make a whole lot of sense. So in my company, we had about a 10,000 square foot office, and 2,000 of those square feet were for a boardroom that we used once a quarter. So we had this big, beautiful boardroom that we were using 4 times in the year. And what we realized is that from a distributed workforce, we were able to take an 8,000 square foot office and book on demand that boardroom 4 times a year, and to be able to book it only when we needed it and pay for it only when we used it. And again, this became, since 2010, started to really build within the real estate community. But prior to COVID, it represented still less than 3% of the entire market in the US. 97% of the market was still on 15-year leases. But then the pandemic came and it changed everything. I was somebody that did not like to work out of the house. I loved to be in the office. But with 12 months of perspective now, there's a couple things that I've noticed, and I share with a lot of people that they share common. Other people feel this as well. So first is that you can be really productive at home. I get a lot of work done at home thanks to the technology through Microsoft and Google and Zoom and all of the cloud-based applications that are available. I also realized that I don't really like to commute as much as I did. So I'm 45 minutes outside of Manhattan, but my commute into and out of the city was 2 hours each way each day. So I was spending 4 hours a day commuting. I didn't realize how painful that was while I was doing it for the past 15 years. But as I started to work from home, I realized I did not want to commute 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's also expensive. So for me to get into Manhattan, I drive to the bus station, I take a bus into the city, I take a subway to my office, and then I have to do a return home as well. So besides for 20 hours a week, I was spending $500 a month commuting into the city. I also wasn't getting to enjoy time with my family. So I've got 3 young kids. I wasn't able to make it to any of their activities, any of their sports, because I would leave the city at 6 o'clock and I'd get home at 8 o'clock. Working out of my house has allowed me to finish up at a normal time and go to all the activities of my family. But I also really miss being in the office sometimes. I hate the fact that every conversation that I want to have with somebody requires me to pre-schedule a Zoom meeting, which usually takes 30 minutes, as opposed to those interactions which happen naturally within the office, where a lot of the great ideas have come out of. So when you look at distributed workforce, there are benefits to it and there are downsides. So when you look at the benefits, the first is that employees can be hired regardless of geography. If you've read Reed Hastings' book, No Rules, Rules on Netflix, it talks about talent density. If you haven't read it, read it. It's the best business book I've read in the past year. But it talks about how companies' talent is really correlated to the market that they serve and the amount of talent that's available in that market to hire. And as you open up the geography and you increase the talent density, the amount of talent that you're able to bring into your company increases significantly. So if there are no geography borders and you're able to hire from anywhere in the world, basically, the amount of talent and the concentration of that talent increases significantly. Another benefit is that recruiting time drops whether you're working from home or you're working at a small satellite office, flexible office, co-working that you're able to walk to from your house. Company saves a lot of money. So we spent pre-COVID about $10,000 per employee on real estate related costs. And instead of being stuck in a 15-year lease, you're able to really flex up and flex down as your business changes. So as you hire, as you, unfortunately, business shrinks, as you want to test a new market, instead of putting a flag in the ground and opening up a large office, you're able to test it with a distributed workforce. But with everything that has benefits, there's also downsides. And there are downsides to a distributed workforce. The first one is onboarding new employees. Think about when you joined your company. The way you onboarded is you immersed yourself, you met with all the different teams, you had those casual interactions. When somebody joins a company now and they're working from home, it is very, very difficult to get ingrained in the culture. I'm a believer that culture is the most important part of any business. And it is very, very difficult to build a culture, a consistent culture in an office when everybody's working in different areas. There are distractions. I'm surprised that my kids or my dog haven't come into the background during this presentation. It happens all the time, and that's something that we have to think through. Inconsistent internet. So how many times have you been on a Zoom call where somebody wasn't able to hear, they weren't able to access? It creates a lot of distractions. Distributed workforce gets rid of there's an absence of informal interactions that I believe are really important to come up with and execute on really great ideas. And then, like I talked about, every conversation requires a pre-planned video call, which is not the most efficient use of time. There's one more challenge that I had not thought of with a distributed workforce. And as I wrote a blog article one day, somebody posted a tweet that really got me thinking about something that was a huge, huge concern that I hadn't thought about before. And that is that a distributed workforce can be bad for equality. If offices are opened up in small communities based on where people live, and that's where they work, all of a sudden people are not divided by department, they're divided by demographic characteristics and socioeconomic status. And that is a really, really bad thing. So all of these challenges have to be thought through and a decision whether the pros of a distributed workforce outweigh the cons. While most times decisions would be made by companies, the power dynamic has shifted due to COVID, and employees have gotten a lot more say in decisions than they had before. Had I told my boss 3 years ago that I wanted to work out of the house and he wanted me to work out of the office, I wouldn't have any say in that decision. I would either work in the office or I'd find a new job. But right now, which is not a bad thing, employees have a lot of power and say, because if their company isn't offering a distributed workforce, they can go to the 10 other companies that are offering it within that industry. So really, I believe that companies have to offer this in order to recruit and retain talent. And it's up to us, the folks in PropTech, the business leaders, to really figure out how we solve for some of these challenges that are out there. And technology plays a huge role in being able to power this. If you look at the current landscape and you think about how would I go about forming a network of these offices, it's not like the old days where you called up your broker, you toured a bunch of spaces, you found a headquarters office and everybody worked there. Now you have to manage a network of all of these different offices, people working out of their house. And the current options that are there are the traditional landlords, which I've just listed a handful, the operators which are out there which offer flex, or marketplaces that offer the ability to be the intermediary to help you book these different on-demand or flexible offices. The problem with dealing particularly through a marketplace is that every office that you have has a different landlord with different rules, different access credentials, and you need to figure out a way to be able to marry this all together so that you can manage the different solutions which are out there. The different things that you want to manage are your employees' needs. So are they able to book office space? Is there a co-working facility near them that they can work out of? Facilities management. So how do you do ordering of supplies and technology and everything that's needed to be able, cleaning services to be able to manage these different offices? Communications platform. When everybody was in a single office, it was very easy for the building to communicate with the employees. Now, when everybody's spread across different regions, we have to figure out how to communicate between the building and the employees. Access control. As people travel from office to office, they don't want to carry 15 different access cards with them or physical keys or 15 different apps. We need to make sure that there's an integrated access control platform that employees can go from office to office, or leadership can travel to the different offices with a single app that's able to help them access the different spaces. And most important is, as business leaders, we have to be able to assess real-time engagement. When everybody's in an office, it's fairly easy to know what the culture's like and if people are happy and if people have energy. You need an engagement app to be able to access and interact with your employees in all of these different spaces, whether they're homes, co-working, traditional leases, on demand, to be able to get real-time feedback to assess if there's a problem so that you can address it. And in order to do this, the holy grail, what needs to be developed is a single operating system that can handle all of this functionality which is needed from your team. We talked about this. The old way was to work directly through a broker, have them find your office space, you toured it. Now with a distributed workforce, it's much more complicated. To be completely honest, under all circumstances, I recommend you working with a professional broker that will help guide you and help you figure out this new normal. But you need to be able to have one platform that ties all of your offices together. The closest that I've seen so far is Colliers' mobility app, which works through a marketplace to allow you to book different spaces through different landlords and have one single set of policy and procedures so that you're not managing all different relationships with different landlords. But there still is not this commercial operating system that's needed to power everything that is needed. This is just a graphic. This is how I visualize what an operating system would look like. And if you look at this, there are all of these individual pieces operate today individually. So there are amazing tenant engagement apps which are out there. There are great access control providers. There are marketplaces for you to be able to book your flexible offices, but that operating system does not exist. So as you're in the marketplace and you're looking for these different pieces, you're looking for your tenant engagement provider, you're looking for your access control provider, it's not realistic to say, okay, you have to wait till this operating system gets built in order to build it. You need to make these decisions now. So as you're meeting with different vendors and you're having these different conversations, there's one question that you have to ask, and that is, does it have an open API? Does it integrate with other systems? Just my current company, Castle, right now, where we provide access control, what we're doing is we've built an open API so that we can integrate with tenant amenity providers. We can integrate with flexible work providers. We can have one platform, whether it's our platform or somebody else's platform. And Castle's not the only company that does this. There are different access control providers that provide this open API. But as you look at all of the great technology which is out there today and you're making decisions, you want to future-proof what you're doing, because that operating system that I talk about will be built. I believe it will be built by somebody within the next 6 to 12 months. And you want to make sure that what you purchased is able to plug in to an operating system so that you as a business leader are able to manage all of these new challenges that come with a distributed workforce that maybe people haven't thought about beforehand. But it's a very big challenge, and it is technology that's going to tie this all together. If you're not sure where to start as you're planning a distributed workforce, realize that nobody knows. Everybody's trying to figure this out right now, and anybody that says that they're an expert on it is not telling the truth. Every day you hear new companies that say they're going to be 100% remote. And 3 months later, they come back and they say they're going to have a distributed workforce or they're going to bring people back to the office. So it's okay not to know exactly what your plan is, but the best people to rely on are real estate brokers. Real estate brokers that understand the dynamics associated with all of the different options that are out there and can help guide you with relationships with technology providers. But if there's one takeaway, it is don't sit on the sidelines right now. Start making decisions from a tech platform. Think about all of the challenges that are out there that you're going to need to be able to solve to be able to manage this new normal, which I believe is coming. And I believe distributed workforces are the future and will be that way for a long time. But just make sure that your technology platform, the different platforms that you choose to make up this operating system, have an open API that either today or in the future can tie together. You also want to be wary of new startup companies that have unproven technologies. I have seen some amazing technology that have come out with startup companies, and I'm a huge believer in startup companies, but you want to make sure that what you're investing in is something that is proven, is something that's going to withstand the test of time, because there's nothing worse than rolling out one tenant engagement platform and finding out that it doesn't do what you needed to do, and then having to make a capital expenditure and also a resource expenditure to be able to roll something new out to your clients and out to your employees. I love to interact with people. I love to answer questions. So at any time, if you have any questions today, in the future, you want to pick my brain on different technology providers that are out there, get an unbiased overview of the way I'm thinking about the future of office, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Glenn@PropTechFuture.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And then the one ask I have is I'd ask you to please follow my blog. It's PropTechFuture.com. Any articles you ever want me to write or anything you want to learn about, just please reach out to me, and I'm happy to have conversations or meetings with anybody.